I knew I was in trouble the moment she opened the door barefoot, and in red. Not bright, desperate red. No. The kind that looks like it already knows the rules, and still doesn't care. Her name was Elise. She lived 2 floors above me. I'd seen her around the building before, arms full of groceries, keys always half dangling from her fingers like she never had time to slow down. She looked maybe mid-40s, but she moved like she'd had to hold a lot of things together for a very long time. I was just a guy with a toolbox. 26, freelancing for rent, not thinking much past the next repair job. My landlord told me her sink was leaking again, and that she didn't want to bother a real plumber. She didn't say much at first. Just pointed to the kitchen with a vague smile, like even talking was something she'd done too much of lately. The place was spotless, but lived in. The kind of clean that says, someone's been tired here for a long time. I knelt beneath the sink while she hovered behind me, maybe 3 feet away. Close enough that I could hear her breathe out through her nose every time she was about to say something, and then didn't. "You're quiet," I finally said, half joking, wiping rust from a wrench. "You're young," she replied, dry as the white wine she poured into a glass at 3:17 p.m. She didn't offer me one. And somehow, that made it feel more intimate. "I mean, thanks for helping," she added, softer now. "It's been a while since someone just showed up when I asked." I didn't answer right away. The words felt heavier than the faucet in my hand. Somewhere between tightening the bolts and pretending I wasn't watching her reflection in the oven door, I started noticing things I wasn't supposed to. How she wore no ring. How she stood with one arm folded across her stomach, like she was keeping herself from unraveling. How her voice changed pitch when she said my name for the first time, like it surprised even her. We didn't talk about anything important. Just sink pressure and calcium buildup. But the silences in between started filling up with something. "You ever feel like you're too many people at once?" she asked suddenly. I turned from under the counter. Her eyes weren't on me, they were on the wine, on the glass, on the way the light hit the wall. "I guess," I said. "Sometimes I feel like I'm still catching up to the guy I'm supposed to be." She looked at me then. Fully. And something in her expression dropped, the polite shield, the automatic smile. Gone. Then she said it. "Tonight. I'm not anyone's mother." She said it like a confession. Not to seduce, not to explain, just to tell the truth. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And then she stepped forward. Not dramatically. Just one step. But it was the kind of step you don't take back. Her hand brushed mine as she took the wrench from the counter. Not an accident. "Let me help," she said quietly, her voice low, like the night had already begun. And I realized, I wasn't fixing her sink. She was undoing something in both of us. I told myself I was still there for the sink. Even as the tools lay untouched on the counter. Even as she sat across from me now, barefoot, legs curled up on a bar stool, sleeves pushed to her elbows like we were just 2 neighbors sharing air and not, whatever this was becoming. The red dress clung to her in a way that felt accidental, like she hadn't meant to wear it for anyone. Or maybe she had, just not for me. "I used to fix things all the time," she said, running her fingertip along the rim of her wine glass. "Bike chains, broken doorknobs, my ex-husband's mood swings. Now I just call someone." I watched her hands. There was something in the way they moved, precise but tired. Like they used to play piano, or maybe grip steering wheels too tight. "You're divorced?" I asked, regretting it the second it came out. She didn't flinch. 7 years. I still keep thinking I'll start dating again when things calm down. But they never do. I nodded slowly, not sure what to say. She was telling me things she didn't owe me. That made it feel more real. And also more impossible. She wasn't just older. She wasn't just beautiful in that unbothered, worn-in way that made me forget how to stand properly. She was someone with a kid. A life. A full story written before I even started mine. I glanced at the clock behind her. 4:42 p.m. I should have been gone an hour ago. I should have tightened one last bolt, cracked a joke, said, "Let me know if it leaks again," and walked out. Instead, I stayed. She got quiet for a moment, staring through the window. The sun lit up one side of her face, catching the faintest line near her eye. It didn't make her look old. It made her look like someone who'd survived things without talking about them. "Why are you still here?" she asked, not accusatory, just curious. I hesitated. There was a version of the truth I could have said. That I liked how she talked. That she didn't treat me like a kid playing handyman. That I hadn't been able to stop thinking about the way her voice dipped when she said, "Tonight, I'm not anyone's mother." But I didn't say any of that. I just shrugged. Didn't want to leave if the job wasn't done. She smiled at that. Small. Not flirty. Something else. "You know," she said, her tone almost playful but not quite. "This isn't the first time I've had something leak." And then she touched my arm. Bare fingers, barely there, but warm. Deliberate. Something in me locked up. I could feel every breath between us, stretched tight like the silence just before something tips over. I opened my mouth. To say something stupid. Or brave. Or both. But all that came out was, "Elise." She blinked, but didn't pull away. And then, just above a whisper, "Stay a little longer?" The kitchen had grown too quiet. No clink of tools. No casual small talk. Just the hum of the fridge and her hand still resting on my arm like it belonged there. I should have moved. Said something to break the spell, made a joke, looked at my phone, left. But I didn't. Because she didn't. "Stay a little longer?" she'd asked. And I had. I was still here. We moved to the couch, not with intent, just migration. She brought a second glass of wine. I didn't ask for it. She didn't ask if I wanted it. She just handed it to me, fingers brushing, eyes unreadable. I caught myself looking at her collarbone, how the dress draped slightly off one shoulder. A faint freckle there. A single one. She caught me staring and didn't look away. "You look nervous," she said. "I'm not." She laughed gently. "You lie like someone who still thinks it matters." That stung, not because she was wrong, but because she'd seen it. So fast. "I'm not used to this," I muttered, staring into the glass. "This? You? This house? The silence? You talking to me like I'm..." I trailed off. "Like I'm not just some guy fixing your sink." She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes on mine. "Like you're what?" Before I could answer, her phone buzzed sharply on the counter. She didn't move. Buzz. Buzz. Then silence. "Do you need to get that?" I asked too quickly. "No," she said. And then, softer. "It's just my daughter." Right. She had a daughter. Reality crept back in like cold air under a door. "You sure?" I added. "She's with her dad this weekend. She's fine." She said it with a certain practiced ease, but I noticed the way her thumb grazed her palm, like she wanted to reach for the phone and didn't. "I shouldn't." I started, then stopped. She tilted her head. "Shouldn't what?" "Be here." "Why?" I looked at her then, really looked. Not just at her dress or the way her hair was coming loose behind her ear, but at her. Tired. Alive. Reaching, maybe? And I hated that I didn't have a good answer. Not one I believed, anyway. I tried again. You're older. You've got a life. A kid. I'm just. She moved closer. Not dramatically, just enough to cut the space. You're not just anything, she said. The words hit harder than they should have. Like a hand on the back of my neck. Like a breath I didn't know I was holding. And then, her hand was on my cheek. Warm. Still. I froze. She didn't. I wanted to say something, anything. But I couldn't think straight. Everything I told myself about keeping this line clear blurred the second she touched me like that. Then a knock at the door. Sharp. Unexpected. We both flinched. She looked at me. I looked at her. Neither of us moved. The line wasn't just blurry now. It was almost crossed. The knock echoed again. Harder this time. Elise stood, slow and silent, like she was trying to delay the moment just by refusing to meet it. I stayed seated, the glass still in my hand, sweat forming at the rim. She opened the door only a crack. A woman's voice. Young. Impatient. Mom? Why aren't you answering your phone? I stiffened. Elise turned to glance at me over her shoulder. Just a flick of her eyes. But it said everything. Not now. Please don't move. Stay. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Not all the way. I could still hear them. I thought you were at Dad's, Elise said. He dropped me off early. A pause. Then the daughter, cool and clipped. Why is there a guy's jacket on the chair? Silence. Then, Elise's voice, quieter. He's just fixing the sink. I stared at the jacket. My jacket. I wanted to leave. My legs wouldn't move. When she came back in, she looked different. A little older. A little smaller. Like something had been peeled off, the red dress still stunning, but no longer untouchable. She stood there for a moment, hands at her sides. Then said, barely audible, She's 15. She watches everything. I nodded but didn't speak. She walked past me slowly, stopped by the counter, poured the last of the wine, then didn't drink it. I'm not reckless, she said without turning around. I don't do this. I don't invite young men into my house. I don't say things I can't unsay. She faced me. Her arms were crossed, not defensively, like she was bracing for impact. But I look at you, she continued, and I remember a version of myself I haven't seen in years. One that wasn't just a mother, or a wife, or an ex-wife, or a tired woman in a quiet kitchen. She exhaled. And I hate that it matters this much to me. It was the first thing she'd said that sounded like it hurt to say. I stood. Slowly. I don't care about the age, I said. Or the daughter. Or whatever reason we're supposed to pretend this isn't happening. She met my eyes. And I saw it again, the flicker, the break, the longing behind the tiredness. You make me feel. I trailed off. Couldn't finish it. She stepped closer. Say it. I couldn't. She brushed her fingers down my arm, and then stopped halfway. Her hand hovered there, like it wanted to rest against my chest but couldn't cross that final inch. I looked down at her hand. Then at her. Then back again. Finally I asked, voice barely above a whisper, if I kiss you, do I become a mistake? She didn't answer. But she didn't move away either. The air between us hung thick, one breath away from unraveling everything. But then, just as her hand began to move, slowly closing that inch between us, her phone rang. Not a buzz. Not a chime. A sharp, insistent ringtone that cracked the moment wide open. She flinched, like she'd forgotten it could still reach her. The name on the screen lit up in bold white. Nate X. She didn't answer it. But she didn't turn it off either. Just stared. I took a step back. You should get that, I said, my voice low even. Elise swallowed hard. No. He doesn't matter. But something in her face said otherwise. A quiet dread. Like a ghost had entered the room and taken a seat between us. I didn't press. But I didn't move either. She finally silenced the call. And then, for the first time since I walked in that afternoon, she looked uncertain, really uncertain. Like she was about to say something she'd spent years keeping locked away. I should have told you this earlier, she began. But you looked familiar when I opened the door yesterday. I blinked. What do you mean? She rubbed her hand over her forehead, searching for the words. You went to Westbrook High, right? Class of 2017? I froze. Yeah. My daughter, Ava. You two had homeroom together. I stared at her, my chest tightening. No, I whispered. She used to talk about you. Said you were kind? That you held the door open for people when no one else did. My throat went dry. I didn't recognize you at first, she said. You grew up. And she stopped. Looked away. The silence snapped like glass. I used to give you rides, she said, barely audible. During winter, when you missed the bus. You probably don't remember. And suddenly, I did. That battered gray sedan. The woman who offered me a lift without ever asking why I was alone at the stop in the snow. That had been her. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to swallow the memory and the present all at once. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. Because, she said, voice cracking, it was easier when you were just the guy fixing my sink. I let the words sink in. Let the past catch up to the present. All the lines we'd blurred. The almost. The ache. And now, this. She was Ava's mom. Not just older. Connected. I didn't know what to feel. Shame. Want. Confusion. All of it. I shouldn't have let you stay, she whispered. But I didn't move. And neither did she. I remember those mornings, I said finally. Your car smelled like cinnamon gum, and your heat didn't work. She laughed, broken, surprised. Then looked up at me again. I didn't know you remembered. I took a step toward her. I never forgot. The air between us wasn't quiet anymore. It was full of memory. Her cinnamon-scented car. My wet backpack on the floor. Her hands on the steering wheel, always drumming some invisible rhythm. And now, this. She wrapped her arms around herself, like she was trying to hold in everything spilling loose. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said. Not with you. Especially not with you. I know, I said. Me either. She turned, facing the window. Afternoon light touched her shoulder, tracing the curve of it like it remembered her too. Her reflection looked older than I remembered, but softer somehow. I wasn't looking for anything, she said. I was just tired. Of being invisible. Of feeling like the only person in my house who doesn't belong to someone else. That hit harder than I expected. Because I knew the feeling. I walked to the kitchen, my steps careful, not rehearsed. I leaned against the counter, close, but not touching her. Can I tell you something stupid? I asked. She gave the faintest nod. I came back from college last year. And the one thing that kept me grounded was this weird memory of you. Dropping me off. Never asking why I missed the bus. Just being there. When no one else really was. She looked at me then, not startled, not moved. Just deeply present. Like she was seeing me with all the layers peeled back. I'm not saying this is right, I added, or even makes sense. But it's not nothing. Tears welled, but didn't fall. I wanted to feel wanted again, she whispered. But then you walked in, and I didn't feel wanted. I felt seen. And that scared the hell out of me. I nodded. I wasn't supposed to be seen by someone like you. Someone like me? I echoed quietly. She turned fully now. You're young. Your world is still growing. Mine's already built, and half of it's crumbling. I'm not looking for something perfect, I said. I'm looking for something real. And then the silence stretched. No one moved. No kisses. No music. No perfect lines. Just her hand reaching across the space, not for my face or my chest, but for my fingers. And when they touched, she didn't let go. Her thumb ran across the back of my hand, slow and unsure. I don't know what happens after this, she said. I don't even know what this is. I took a breath. Me either. Another pause. Then, would you come back tomorrow? She asked. She wasn't smiling, but her voice had that trembling edge, like she was trying hard not to hope. I squeezed her hand. I will, I said. But only if it's you who answers the door. Not the woman you think you have to be. This time she smiled. Tired. Real. And then we just stood there, no promises, no guarantees. Only the quiet truth that something between us had finally found its shape. I came back the next day. No toolbox this time. No excuse. She opened the door before I could knock. No red dress. No makeup. No perfectly timed lines. Just Elise, in a soft gray sweater, hair still damp from a shower, bare feet on cold tile. And for the first time, she didn't look like someone preparing for something. She just looked like herself. We didn't talk much at first. Just moved around each other in the kitchen, the way people do when something big has already been said. She made coffee. I stood by the window. Her daughter was gone again, a school trip this time. We didn't pretend that wasn't part of why it felt easier. But we also didn't pretend it was the only reason I was there. We sat on the couch, elbows nearly touching, silence not heavy now, just real. Elise turned to me. So, what happens now? I looked at her. Not just her face, but the whole of her, tired and warm and brave in a way people don't talk about. Brave in the way that says I stayed when I could have disappeared. I don't know, I said honestly. But I want to keep finding out. With you. She smiled. Not big. Just enough to make her eyes crease in that way I'd started craving. You're not scared of what this looks like? I am, I said. But I'm more scared of pretending it didn't mean anything. And that was it. No fireworks. No sudden declarations. Just this quiet agreement to keep showing up. Day by day. In the weeks that followed, things didn't turn into a movie. There were awkward conversations. Her daughter raised an eyebrow when I came by to drop something off. We both paused when people asked how we knew each other. And sometimes, Elise would still pull back a little, like part of her couldn't believe this was allowed to feel good. But slowly, the gap closed. We started having lunch together on Sundays. I fixed her screen door. She made me lentil soup. I left my hoodie on her couch more than once. And one night, I came over to find her reading on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, coffee in hand. She looked up at me and said simply, "You were never a mistake." That was the moment I knew. What changed? Everything subtle. Everything that matters. She stopped feeling ashamed of being wanted. I stopped trying to fit into someone else's timeline. We let go of how it was supposed to look, and chose what it felt like instead. Sometimes love doesn't kick the door in. Sometimes it just lingers. Waits until you're tired of lying to yourself. and then asks, "Are you ready now? Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Forbidden romances, emotional reunions, or unexpected love? Let us know in the comments. Your next favorite story might begin with your idea." Speech Balloon Redheart.